we have the ETF coming up, and then additionally we have FASB rules. Most people are bullish for both those reasons, and so I am curious with FASB progressing and the ETF coming. I don't think most people have really considered about how market cap is downstream of price, right? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that dynamic and how you think this exponentially shrinking supply of Bitcoin on exchanges. Of course, for less than 2 million, 1.7 million Bitcoin left on exchanges. 70% of the Bitcoin out there are either lost or being hodled. So this massive supply squeeze, how do you think that impacts market cap, and how do you think price and market cap have that dynamic in the future? Like, do you think it could be have a much more violent upside than what people expect?
I do. I would so for any asset, and the more kind of tightly held the asset, the bigger the effect is. But for any asset, if $1 billion wants to flow into Apple stock, for example, just right away, that'll increase the market cap by more than $1 billion because price is set on the margin, right? So an example I use is if you have a neighborhood street with like 20 homes on it, and one of those homes used to be worth 500,000, but recently sold for 600,000, all of those other homes basically reprice upward by 20%. And so only $600,000 traded hands, but this entire street of 20 times 600, thousand dollars, it just increased by what's that, $100,000 per home. So that's $2 million. Just because $600,000 traded hands, and really only the marginal increase was $100,000 for one home, right? And so $100,000 had a 20-fold increase and moved the overall kind of market value of that street by 2 million. And so the same's true for Bitcoin, the same's true for stock. Basically if $1 billion wants to flow into Bitcoin, we'll probably see a $10 billion market cap increase or maybe more. Um, the recent price surge we saw from say 25,000 to 35,000, however many $100 billion that was in market cap, it's not because $100 billion flew into it. It's because a handful of billions flew into it, and then 70% of the supply has not moved on chain in a year. And so around the margins, that boosted the market cap. Now that also can affect on the downside as well. If things are in a bubble and $1 billion wants to fly out, that can drop the market cap by 80 billion. And so over the course of time, that settles towards basically whatever percent of net worth people feel comfortable holding in Bitcoin compared to other assets. The same is true for any other major asset like Apple stock or their homes and things like that. But in any sort of like major change, you can get those bigger upturns and drawdowns compared to how much capital is actually changing hands. Um, and Bitcoin goes through these HODL cycles. And so when it's in a bear market, it tends to move towards the liquid hands. And when it's in a raging bull market, some of those illiquid hands eventually do sell. If they're up 5x or 10x, they cash out 20% of their holdings and they go buy a house, for example, or they rebalance into whatever they want. And new buyers are coming in, and eventually they exhaust, kind of the situation. To some extent, I think the supply reduction from exchanges is overstated. It's a good narrative, and around the margins, it's true, but some of that has just been reclassified. So, for example, if money moves from like Coinbase Exchange to Coinbase custody, it's still in Coinbase, right? It's just it changed the type of money that it is. Similarly, some of that in recent years, like money went into wrapped Bitcoin on Ethereum. And we can kind of classify that as a whole nother exchange. That's just like the Ethereum environment is like another exchange. And so if some Bitcoin went out of centralized exchanges and towards pseudo centralized exchanges on Ethereum, that's still a type of exchange, right? It's basically this like pool of capital is meant for trading around. And so when you adjust for a couple of things like that, it's less significant than some of the charts would imply. But it still is the case that because of the HODL cycle, during this bear market in particular, more and more coins, went from fast money participants to liquid strong hand participants. And it will take a pretty significant price increase to get it, most of them to part with any of their coins.
I hope that you're enjoying this conversation with Lynn, both being really useful and reassuring for you. What makes Lynn so special to me is her ability to think critically from a first principles standpoint with an engineering background, as well as being able to communicate those thoughts clearly and concisely. I happen to agree with her. Number one, I happen to agree that market cap is set at the margins downwind of price, and therefore Bitcoin's price in terms of US dollars could appreciate incredibly rapidly, perhaps by orders of magnitude in each coming cycle. Secondly, I happen to agree that a lot of rehypothecation and fake paper Bitcoin and yield products are ahead of us. I think volatility will continue. And therefore, number three, I happen to agree with her that I think self-custody is really important for you to consider and really important for you to consider urgently. And number four, Lynn and I both talk about how collaborative custody, multi-sig solutions could be a viable option for many people in the coming future. And so, if you have an interest in taking self-custody, if you have an interest in setting up a multi-sig solution and collaborative custody partnership, I do work at the Bitcoin Advisor precisely for this purpose because I think it is the future. You can find me in the link in the description below at the Bitcoin Advisor, where our primary goal is to help you securely transition your Bitcoin off exchanges into your own hands and into your own self-sovereignty. It's really important that you begin considering what happens to you in the event that you lose your seed phrases, what happens to you in the event that you pass on. Will your children, your loved ones, your companies, your spouse, whomever your descendants are, what happens to them if your keys have issues or have troubles and have maintenance? So if you want someone to help you through that process, one-on-one, to create a multi-sig vault, to help you create an estate plan, to be an ongoing collaborative custody partner, and help reassure you in the face of all these products and all these innovations happening to Bitcoin atop the base layer, if you want to have someone assist you in the coming years and hopefully coming decades, Bitcoin Advisor could be a good place for you to consider. If you go to the link in the description, you can learn more about me and why I'm personally there as well. And I will send you dozens of pages of free documents, both about our company specifically at the Bitcoin Advisor and multi-sig and cloud custody in general. Purely educational content for you to learn about. Dozens of pages with great content, great perspectives, ideas, and thought-provoking perspectives for you to consider in the coming months and years as you take more and more of your Bitcoin into self-custody. So not only, again, do you get information about collaborative and multi-sig custody in general, and you also get information about the Bitcoin Advisor specifically. Also, I'm happy to send you, or you'll find a link below, a comparison of what Bitcoin Advisor does compared to our competition, what we provide, and our goal is to provide 10 times the value for half the cost. So if you have an interest in multisig, I strongly encourage you to consider it now. More and more companies are only going to have the option of multisig. See, a company or a charity or a church cannot pursue the option of a single sig solution. They have to pursue multisig solutions. So as an individual, as a company, or as a board of a charity or church, whatever the case, if you're interested in a multi-sig solution for the long term, for cold storage, I highly encourage you to start doing so now. Whether that's with me at the Bitcoin Advisor or elsewhere, I strongly encourage you to do it because that rehypothecation will continue, Bitcoin's rapid price appreciation will continue, and in those events, demand will skyrocket for these precise kinds of services and for time with people that are experts in this field. So, again, once more, please check out the link in the description for the Bitcoin Advisor where you can find me. You can schedule a meeting with me. You can book a free consultation with me there. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Again, happy to send you dozens of pages of free complimentary information for you to learn more about your Bitcoin and learn more about your Bitcoin self-custody solutions. Because again, whether you work with me or not, it's far more important. Please just consider taking self-custody as soon as possible. Link in the description. Thanks.